Hey, hi, and welcome. I'm going to try to keep it short if I can. How to keep a band together. Um, Bands are a funny thing. I've been in a lot of bands, and I want to get back into it. And the most recent kind of band thing that I had going was last year with the Blind Pig Patrons. A bunch of high school buddies that just jam out, and they're not really looking to do anything serious or like that. They're just, guy, my buddy, Jason, he basically has a garage that he converted into basically like a little bit of a jam space, and he's got a drum riser there, and you can see some of the videos from last year on this channel. And but these guys work for a living. We were able to get together every Thursday night. I don't know why it worked out Thursday nights, but it was just Thursday nights. And sometimes we'd have different people come in and jam, and it was just really cool. And it was great, but it didn't last, and the band fell apart before. It was over before it even began. But everybody still gets along, and whenever the next time there's a jam, and I got some wheels to get there, I'm there. My other buddy, high school buddy, he wants to jam. Him and I have been talking about, getting together and jamming. It's not like these guys live far from me, but it's just far enough that I can't get there, right? Without the vehicle, so. So it's hard to keep a band together when you're a grown-up. It really is. But what about when you're teenagers and stuff? Well, first off, when you're teenagers and you're in the band with your buddies, that's your first problem right there. Is you're in the band with your buddies, your best friends, right? And you took on your best friend as a singer because he's your best friend, not because he can sing. And after a while, when you realize the guy just can't sing, he doesn't have any rhythmic timing whatsoever, and is tone deaf, you're just never going to get it going. You're just never going to be able to get through an entire song. And you're going to find there's a lot of people that are like that, where they can get like 3/4 away through the song and they just can't. And this is usually newer players that they're new to a band. Make sure you pick a song that you could do from start to finish right from the get-go. I don't care how simple the song. If it's a 3-chord rock song, even if you don't know all the parts perfectly, find a way to finish the song. Don't worry about hyper-perfection in your first band. Get through the songs. Once you get through the songs, then worry about perfecting the songs to, clean them up and stuff like that. But then what's going to happen is, usually with earlier bands, you got one kid that's been playing guitar for 5 years, another kid that's playing bass for 6 months, and another kid that's been playing guitar for 8 months. And you got a drummer that's kind of tone deaf and, doesn't know how to play soft enough, and just smashing cymbals, and it doesn't stay together because of the lack of experience. So don't take that personal, because it's the lack of experience that you can't pull it together. Okay. Now, mind you, some of them do stick it out, and then once they do get pulled together, boy, does that ever work. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I had this drummer that him and I worked together for years, okay? And we went through probably easy 10 bands together. But him and I, it was just like we were like this, right? I knew we could play off each other because we knew, we clicked right from the get-go. He was a little rough at the beginning because he was only played for about a year and a half. But a couple of, 5-6 years in, he was a pretty good drummer, and we'd worked together so many places that it was just, even if we didn't know the songs, we knew how to work together. So whenever we'd meet up, sometimes we'd meet up with a guitar player and a bass player that had worked together for a long time. It really clicked really well. And we'd kind of pair up and we'd put it together because those guys knew how to work together because they'd been working together so long, and then it was just a matter of just merging the two groups, and you'd get something pretty good out of it. And then we'd try to find singers, and a lot of the singers, most singers have no rhythm. They could sing, they got a good voice, but they don't understand the concept of 4/4 timing, let alone anything more complicated, right? And that's most singers you're gonna meet. They don't understand. Like they could sing along with the record, or they could say, or the CD or the MP3. Showing my age here, but they can't. They can't sing along with a band because they're not used to it. They don't realize, and you have to sit there and teach them, sing on the beat. You know what I mean? Like sing with it. The drummer's your foundation, the bass player's foundation, the guitar players add a little more. And some singers don't understand that, and because they don't understand that, you have to explain it to them. But you have to explain it in a way that you don't offend anybody, and they get all huffy on you and they end up quitting, right? And then you get other singers that they know exactly what they're doing, and timing is not a problem. They understand when to sing. Like, it's not just, okay, do I sing now or do I not sing now? Like, they become a musician, not just a person with a good voice that can sing along in the shower. You know what I mean? So once they understand that, then you've got yourself a musician that knows about timing. And then they can dynamically work with the guitar player or the bass player or whatever and sing along so that it sounds like something, not just somebody who's singing karaoke. Most karaoke singers have great voices that have great voices, can't sing in a live band. They've never done it before. Why? Because if one note's just a little bit different, they don't know where they are. They're only singing by memory of where something is, not by the feel of the rhythm of the band. It takes a little while for them to pick that up. So these things need to be discussed. For example, there was one guy, this guy, it didn't work out with him, and it was too bad because he was a good singer. He was basically, his idol was Freddie Mercury, okay? And he was a big Queen fan or whatever. And this guy, he had like a 3-octave voice, everything like that. He understood, but he was one of those hyper-perfectionists that, he did he played a few places or whatever, and he would do karaoke, he would do this and he'd do that. He had the image, he had everything, but he had, like, the voice of Freddie Mercury, but the attitude of Yngwie Malmsteen. So it was like, oh, that's great, but you need to do this and this. And, when you hit the drum, go, da-da, 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 which was great because he was, he understood how, like, he had musical theory down, like, he knew what he was talking about. But he was also trying to be Bob Rock at the same time. So he's like, oh, you're a good guitar player, but you'd make a really good rhythm guitar player. And and he was just kind of like, he wasn't being insulting to be insulting. He was just, he was one of those people that he thought he was better than what he was. He was really good. Don't get me wrong. He was really good. Even my friends that were sitting there, they were like, wow, take that guy. He's good. But it's like his attitude was, he was running the show and, you're the band that works for me, kind of. So we never took him on just because attitude-wise, well, my drummer was more insulted by him. He was like, oh, yeah, because he was like, no, when you're doing the drums, you got to, when another band member tells another band member how to do their job, you usually end up with hostilities. So for me, I'm an easygoing guy. I'm like, okay, well, if you want it that way, okay, fine. It's like, I was easygoing anyway. I'm always easygoing. But I'm in the band for fun. But this guy, he was looking to make it big. And he probably could have if he found the right guys. He was professional enough. And I can admire that kind of professionalists that push you a little bit more. But it depends on where you are as a musician. Like when you've been in as many bands as I have, okay, you have two schools of thought on bands. Number one, you're going to get together with a bunch of guys, make a bunch of noise, have some laughs, gigs, and make the audience happy, and everything's good. And you're not going to take life too seriously. Like Bugs Bunny said, don't take it too seriously because you'll never get out alive anyway. Or you meet up with some really good musicians, and you're like, okay, guys, we're going to put the work in. We're going to go for perfection because the guys have the talent to do it. And that's hard work and very hard to keep together because it gets frustrating when you're expecting this level and you're only getting this level. So it does take a compromise to understand that you have to work your way to that level. You can't just get there overnight. Now, sometimes you meet what I call the magic musicians. There was one night I went to a jam night, and the drummer there was nothing spectacular whatsoever. He was straight forward timing, nothing to catch your attention. It was like, okay, you'd say, was he a good drummer, bad drummer? Oh, there was, he was a drummer. I wasn't really paying attention. I get on stage with this guy, okay, and it's just me and him. Nobody else wanted to jump up on the bass or whatever for the first song. I said, okay, well, I'll do a medley. If the show must go on. So I grabbed the guitar. I can't remember what guitar it was. It was some sort of a hollow body Les Paul. It was really cool. It was an Epiphone, I think. And him and I jammed. And I did like a kind of a medley of like Ted Nugent's Stranglehold instrumental, because I'd seen Damn Yankees years ago, and I saw Ted Nugent do this big prelude up to Stranglehold, and he turned it into an instrumental, and I thought it was the coolest thing, and it stuck, and I've been ripping it off ever since. And this drummer, we went so dynamic. We brought it down, we brought it up, and this drummer just, whatever happened, this guy transformed on stage, and I was like, that's the tightest drummer I've ever jammed with, and this guy was just like, yeah, more, and it was like what was supposed to be a 3-minute kind of just making noise turned into like 11 minutes of the crowd going nuts for this hyper dynamic guitar drummer playing off each other, as if we've been playing together for 10 years. Next thing I know, this guy comes flying up. This guy looked exactly like Ryan Stiles from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Comes flying up, throws the bass on, and he jumps in halfway through the song, and he's like, "This is only like basically based around a couple of chords, right?" So, and then of course it just filled everything in. It just became this shred jam that was just everybody had a part. 11 minutes later, that was the only tune I did, and then, by myself, like as me going up, and then the guys would not let me off the stage. And the drummer's like, "You're staying here, man. You're staying here." And between the three of us, it was just like a power trio. We did a couple of songs. The bass player's like, "You're not going anywhere, man. You're staying here. You're going to jump in. Just play this, and this, and do whatever you want, And it was just really good, and it was just really good. And I think that was the same night I met that guy named Monty. Guy walked around, basically bust around with a Fender Twin everywhere. Like a 100-pound amp and his beat up Stratocaster. And I jammed with him. And he was like, I took a back seat to him because he was really good. And it was just nice to have that kind of jam night professionalism. It was something I had never experienced before, because usually jam nights, they go well, but they never go that well, and the audience really reciprocated, and that would have made a hell of a band. And unfortunately, it's just I never saw those guys again. But who knows, right? You don't know. So when you find a bunch of guys that click musically, then it's all about attitude is everything. And that's the hard one, is there's some people have too much attitude. And if you have to make compromises right when you start the band, that, okay, well, I know this guy's a little moody sometimes, whatever, don't even bother. Don't even bother. And I'll tell you why, because you haven't seen the full lion until you're in the band. A band becomes like a marriage in a way. Some are good, some are bad, and some will break up. And sometimes you have band members that are not reliable. We had this one singer. She was a phenomenal singer, but man, she'd show up like 2 minutes before you go on stage, stuff like that. She'd keep you sweating all the time. Is she going to show up or not? Always be like just so unreliable that way. But great voice, great singer, great musician. When we were on stage, everything was good, but it was like the off stage stuff. It was like, oh my God, you got it, and it's like, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm late again. You're always late, leave an hour early, geez, it's like, and you get, that stuff frustrates. It didn't frustrate me. I got used to, okay, this is just the way it is, as long as they're there on time, but it's like, it's just never be late for a gig. You've got obligations. It hurts you in the long run, because when you want to play the next time, they're like, oh, yeah, your singer was a half an hour late. We're going to get somebody else the next time. Bartenders and managers, they remember that stuff. So that stuff is what breaks up. There's a whole bunch of things that'll break up bands, but keeping them together, the main secret is two things. Are you musically on the same page? If you have a band full of beginners, it will probably do okay, the same way as if you have a band full of professionals, because you're on the same page. But it's when you got a professional, whoever the band member is plays like on a professional level, and everybody else is just beginning. Yeah, they'll jam with you, but it's like they need to take it up to another level. They don't really have the maybe the interest in or time to, bring you guys up to scratch with them. But sometimes the best way to learn, this is why I like jam nights, is when you jam with people that are better than you musically, not as in they're better than you, but like better than you musically, more advanced than you, you learn more. You learn the most in a jam night, because when you're not in your own room just playing with your amp with all the effects on it, first thing you're going to realize is how crappy effects can be and clutter up the job when you pull in other band members, because those effects are there to fill up the holes that the other band members are not when you're by yourself. So a lot of times I find I like playing straight through the amp because you don't need all these effects because you got everybody else there filling in all the holes for you in the song. And you know, it's when you get people that are really good that can work with other people. That's the other thing. There's a lot of musicians that, like this singer I was talking about, they think the show's about them. And when they do, it's like they can't work, like they can't make compromises to the other musicians in the band that, you know, it has to be this way and that. And those things, they fall apart pretty quick because people can't deal with the attitude, right? You could have a band full of egomaniacs, but if they get along well and they can play well together, yeah, sure, it'll be fine. So it's just little tips like that, especially when you're starting out or whatever. And the other thing that even if you find guys that you can really get along with and you can jam with, and you know, you just don't sweat it and you're out there having fun. A lot of times what breaks up bands is just regular life. People got to make a living, that type of stuff. So again, that happens too. So you got to be able to be, you know, this is the last thing. I remember Rick Emmett. I saw Rick Emmett from Triumph in a guitar clinic in Ottawa one time, and he said something really interesting when the audience was asking him a couple of questions. And one thing about, you know, if you have a really good friend in the band but they're not quite up to scratch, what do you do? You know, and he put it pretty simply. He goes, well, he says, I can't tell you what to do, but he goes, if you got people that are holding you back and you stick with them, they hold you back. You know. It was something along that lines, and if you want to, you know, if you want to go further, you got to sometimes. Unfortunately, it's uncomfortable, and it sucks, but you have to leave some people behind to move forward, or else you just never go anywhere. And he said it's something like that. I can't remember word for word, but it was on that lines, and he was correct. You know, you have to, you know, get every experience you can, but don't be afraid to move forward. And I learned that the hard way too, whereas like there was some band members that I stuck with for years that, you know, they just couldn't come up to scratch, you know. And I'm not saying I was the best player ever. I mean, there were guitar players and bass players and drummers that have moved on from me because I wasn't up to their level, you know what I mean? They were looking for somebody a little more. Although that didn't happen too often for me, I was lucky I had enough experience under my belt with bands that it... plus, I'm really good at improvising, so... That was one of the things. One band, actually, they didn't like me because I improvised too much. They wanted more of a note-for-note type of guy. And I've never been a note-for-note type of guy. I never play anything 100% to the recording. I always like to kind of make it my own. And plus, when it comes to other people's music, the audience most non-musicians don't realize if you're playing note-for-note or not. And maybe I'll do a video just on that. But I'm going to leave this video at that. So anyway... if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe, make sure you smash that like button, make sure you comment and share the video. Have yourselves a great day, eh?